The Healing Soil, second edition by John EverBlest. This is fourth in the Eden series called God's Magnificent Outdoor Automatic Healthcare System. Hello, I am John EverBlest. I am amazed at how simple God has made health and healing. An infinite, loving God embedded our healthcare into the dirt, the air, the breezes, the cold, the heat, the light, the darkness, the waters, the trees, the plants, the food, the sounds of nature, even the beauty of nature is a natural remedy. And why is it that all these puzzle pieces are just now showing up? Maybe it's just that we are finally ready to hear it. They've always been there. COVID opened our eyes, didn't it? I believe that God is showing us the better way once again. He is directing us back to the old paths where lies the good way, Eden itself. Working with the earth. To Adam and Eve was committed the care of the garden, to dress it and to keep it. Genesis 2:15. Though rich in all that the owner of the universe could supply, they were not to be idle. Useful occupation was appointed them as a blessing, to strengthen the body, to expand the mind, and to develop the character. Education 21.2. In this presentation, we're going to unravel 4 little mysteries. 2 remarkable healing stories of history, and 2 remarkable inspired quotes from history. All 4 are related to healing from the soil. Our first mystery story: what would happen if violent, uncontrollable prisoners were placed outside in a garden all day, every day, like Adam and Eve? Here's the video clip to that story.
Former Warden Reagan of Stateville Penitentiary in Illinois was a great believer in horticultural therapy. He was a guest on my TV gardening program on several occasions to tell of the work done by the inmates of the penitentiary. I also visited him on several occasions and was amazed by the beautiful gardens within the prison walls and also the very extensive prison farms. Warden Reagan stated on many occasions that it was only through horticultural therapy that he was able to rehabilitate some of the most extreme psychological cases, making them actually eligible for parole. He said that other forms of manual therapy, including painting and sculpture, done indoors did not have the same beneficial effects. Maybe the results of the horticultural therapy were purely psychological, in getting the men closer to nature and working with flowers. And maybe getting them outdoors into the natural sunlight may have been a very important factor, especially when consideration is given to how poorly the average jail cell is lighted.
The mystery that we are going to try to unravel here is: how would flower gardening make such a dramatic change in temperament, violence, hardened criminals? Was it just sunlight and fresh air? Maybe. We'll see. We'll come back to that question, but let's present the other 3 mysteries first before we start answering any of them. Our next mystery story: a dying woman with a relentless, ceaseless cough meets the soil. She says, "I know by experience the value of an outdoor life to those who are sick. By experience. Years ago, when living in Battle Creek, it was thought that I was dying. My friend said to my husband, 'Brother White, your wife will not live long.' 'Yes,' he answered one day, 'she would not live long if she remained here, but she is going away with me today.' So, accompanied by my son Willie, we started in a phaeton for Greenville, 80 miles north. As I could not sit up during the journey, I knelt on 2 cushions placed on the bottom of the phaeton, leaning my head on my husband's knees. After reaching Greenville, my husband took me out to a strawberry bed and allowed me to work in the soil. He arranged everything for my convenience and brought out an easy chair. I was to set out the strawberry plants. This exercise in the open air seemed to take the poison out of my system. For some time, I had coughed almost constantly, day and night. It seems as if it were impossible to cease coughing. I could sleep but little. But after beginning to work in the soil, my cough left me. Although this outdoor exercise was the only medicine I took, I was rapidly restored to health. How? She could barely move. We could hardly call that exercise. So what all was in play with her rapid recovery? And now we add those two mysterious quotes by one of the world's most prolific health reformer and author, the same lady whose story we just read. Here's her quote. She says, "Everything at Loma Linda is fresh, wholesome, and attractive. The patients could live out of doors a large part of the time. By outdoor exercise and working in the soil, men and women will regain their health." Whoa. Drugs will be discarded. All right, now the last mysterious quote. "Tell those who are sick that if the hosts of those who are dyspeptics and consumptives could turn farmers, they might overcome disease, dispense with drugs and doctors, and recover health." Again, how? We know that consumptives were cured by sunlight and fresh air during the war on TB, but dyspeptics? Dyspeptic is defined as of or having indigestion or consequent irritability or depression. Oh. Consumptive? Well, that's tuberculosis. So, how would working as farmers in the dirt solve indigestion, irritability, depression, and tuberculosis? How did that woman recover so quickly from her cough when she started working in the garden in the dirt? How did working in a garden in the dirt change the temperament of hardened prisoners? Well, we know sunlight, fresh air, and exercise are powerful healing agents, and they certainly contributed to this. But is there more to it? Well, you know there's more to it. That's why I asked the question. All right, something more down to earth, perhaps. The two stories and the two quotes seem to suggest that the dirt itself may also have healing properties. Is there evidence that our health and well-being are connected to the soil? Well, what's in the soil? B12 is in the soil. Well, what does that do? Well, according to the Mayo Clinic, vitamin B12 plays an essential role in red blood cell formation, cell metabolism, nerve function, and the production of DNA, the molecules inside the cells that carry genetic information. Food sources of vitamin B12 include poultry, meat, fish, and dairy products. But, as you know, in God's Eden healthcare plan, poultry, meat, fish, and dairy were not considered food sources. So, where did God intend that we obtain our vitamin B12? Well, the following slide contains a few key excerpts from a very complex MIT article on B12 in the earth. It begins to give us clues that may address the question of where did God intend that we obtain our vitamin B12. MIT biologists solve vitamin puzzle. Well, that sounds interesting. Number one, excerpt number one. Vitamin B12 is the only vitamin synthesized exclusively by microorganisms. Okay, that's clue one. Clue two, B12 is produced by soil microbes that live in symbiotic relationship with plant roots. B12, the most chemically complex of all vitamins, is essential for human health. Still to be explored is the question of why soil bacteria synthesize B12 at all. Walker said, soil microorganisms don't require B12 to survive. And the plants they attach themselves do not need it either. So, this was left as a mystery to the author. Would it be far-fetched to reason that God placed vitamin B12 in the soil for us? Could it be that we are rewarded with health automatically when we work the soil, which is what God assigned to Adam and Eve to do? We don't have to think about it. The next slide is another puzzle piece with B12 on it. Maybe that will help fill in the picture a bit. I'm going to tell a story here. I had an elderly medical professional tell me recently that she was at a lecture a long while back from a Dr. Harding of Loma Linda School of Public Health. A question was asked about getting enough vitamin B12, and Dr. Harding said, just walk through a barn and breathe the dust. You'll get all the B12 you need. This puzzle piece definitely seems to be a part of the bigger picture, don't you think? All right, back to the counsels on working with the soil. Let's see what else we can find. She continues, she says, a greater effort should be made to create and to encourage an interest in agricultural pursuit. Let the teacher call attention to what the Bible says about agriculture, that it was God's plan for man to till the earth, that the first man, the ruler of the whole world, was given a garden to cultivate, and that many of the world's greatest men, its real nobility, have been tillers of the soil. He who earns his livelihood by agriculture escapes many temptations and enjoys unnumbered privileges and blessings denied to those whose work lies in the great city. Oh, yeah. And in these days of mammoth trusts and business competition, there are few who enjoy so real an independence and so great certainty of fair return for their labor as does the tiller of the soil. Could vitamin B12 be one of those unnumbered privileges and blessings? What else is included in those unnumbered privileges and blessings? What about that whole microbiome thing? Does it do more than just produce vitamin B12? The microbiome. Apparently the answer is going to be yes. God created an unfathomably complex system of living organisms in the soil by which our health and very lives depend. It is a micro-ecosystem or microbiome. When God made man out of the dust of the earth, that dust and its living microbiome became part of us. We were made from soil that was teeming with life. There are more of these microbes in our bodies than we have cells in our bodies, and they all have a purpose in maintaining our health and psyche. That microbiome varies according to where it is located in our bodies, our guts, our skin, our lungs, etc. Each has its own variation of that microbiome. Healthy soil is an antidepressant. Mycobacterium vaccae, a microorganism found in soil, lights up neurotransmitters that release serotonin, a mood-lifting hormone. Sufferers of depression need to be outside doing useful labor in an unpoisoned organic garden. And it's far more than just an antidepressant. It turns out that our gut microbiome is the seat of our immune systems. The healthier and more robust the diversity of our gut microbiome, the stronger is our immune system and our ability to resist all manner of disease, and the healthier we will be. But the health and diversity of our gut microbiome is dependent upon the health and diversity of the soil where we live. If the microbiome in the soil is healthy and robust, those that actually manually work that soil and or live and work outdoors on that soil and eat the food that grows in that soil and drink the water filtered through that soil will develop healthy, robust microbiomes, making them magnificently resistant to disease. Alternatively, those that live and work indoors in the soilless concrete cities, eating exclusively of commercially grown foods farmed in poisoned, lifeless soil, will develop a weakened and diminished gut microbiome, making them much more susceptible to all manner of diseases, including the pandemics. It means that if we expect to survive in these end times, we need to get out of the cities into the rich soil of the unpoisoned country, grow our own organic food, live close to the earth, work in the sunlight, and sleep in the fresh air, the automatic health system of Eden. We must stop killing our soil microbiome by the use of pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and man-made fertilizers. We adopt permaculture. We feed the soil veganically, just like in the forests. We stop over-farming. We let the land rest every 7 years as God commanded. And now we know why. We must stop killing our gut microbiome by the use of pharmaceuticals, especially antibiotics, which kill off our microbiome even faster. We stop eating sugar and GMOs and junk foods that have been sprayed with pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides. And we need to eat fibrous foods, natural foods. That's where the gut microbiome grows it. All right, back to that statement about dyspeptics. Tell those who are sick that if the hosts of those who are dyspeptics and consumptives could turn farmers, they might overcome disease, dispense with drugs and doctors, and recover health. All right. A farmer engages in useful labor in the sunlight and fresh air, but the number one defining characteristic of a farmer is that he works in the soil. It has been shown that there is indeed a relationship between dyspepsia and a decreased diversity and decreased population of the gastrointestinal microbiota. And the respiratory system has its own version of the microbiome, which could have a bearing on TB patients. So yes, working in the soil microbiome could help explain that quote about dyspeptics. And this may help also explain the change of attitude in the prison gardeners, as a healthy gut microbiome has also been shown to improve disposition. Yet even the healing properties in the microbiome doesn't seem to address the rapid cure of the woman with the persistent cough, because the gut microbiome takes a while to grow the balance back. Is there yet something else in the soil that might explain it? Something that provides a rapid healing action, perhaps? Well, we have one more healing agency in Eden having to do with the soil, and it's my favorite Eden principle. Eden's barefoot health principle. This principle was modeled for us in Eden. We are part of the earth. It was day 6. Instead of being spoken into existence, Adam, the birds, and the land animals were formed out of the dust of the earth. I believe that God was telling all sentient beings that mankind and the animals are part of the earth, the soil. We are all connected to it. We all came from it. Our food comes from it. Our healing comes from it. And because of sin, we all eventually return to that dust of the earth. When Adam was formed, God stood Adam up upon his bare feet onto the surface of the earth. And God did not place shoes upon his feet. This is a picture of French girls gardening barefoot at Duval Open Air School. Now, Adam was standing barefoot on healthy soil filled with B12 and teeming with life from its own microbiome. But that was not enough for our health and healing. So, God embedded into the surface of the earth and waters another powerful healing substance, invisible, odorless, tasteless. This substance is absorbed instantly and completely and automatically as we walk upon the earth barefooted. That substance is vital to our continued health. It has magnificent healing and protective properties that both prevent and reverse disease. This is why God did not provide mankind with shoes. Most of mankind has never even considered the notion that walking barefoot upon the earth was a health principle until recently. Scientists are calling this the most important health discovery of all time. The magnificent, unbelievable disease-reversing properties of grounding proves that assertion to be true. And what is this healing substance? It's so simple. God's solutions usually are: the surface of the earth and waters are saturated with an almost infinite supply of negatively charged particles, electrons. That's all. This is not new science. The surface of the earth and waters carry a slightly negative charge, and our bodies are supposed to match that charge. In other words, walking barefoot on the earth simply grounds us electrically, just like Adam and Eve were grounded electrically. We were formed from the earth. We are literally part of it. We were not to be separated from it. As it turns out, the very ground we walk on is God's original anti-inflammatory healing agent. It is perfectly balanced, and its healing properties activate automatically and instantly when we simply touch the earth. Just put your hands in the soil. Just walk barefooted in the grass. The longer we are in contact with a negatively charged earth, the more consistent the healing. God's outdoor, automatic, free, effortless healthcare. But the question should be asked, if grounding is so anti-inflammatory, then why is mankind still plagued with chronic inflammatory diseases? All right, here's the answer. Because modern man has separated himself from the earth and have become chronically electron deficient. So how did we become electron deficient? Number one, we left agriculture and moved indoors during the industrial age, and it's only gotten worse since. Number two, we lost our electrical connection to the earth when, in the 1960s, synthetic rubber-soled shoes were invented. And now, 95% of people on this planet walk insulated from the earth. Clint Ober is the man of science that rediscovered this lost Eden barefoot health principle. This is his opinion of synthetic shoes. He says, this was the single thing that happened that probably caused the proliferation of inflammation-related health disorders far and above anything else. These tennis shoes, this is the most destructive invention that man had ever made. The synthetic sole shoe. I'm thinking he's serious about this. The solution to chronic inflammation has been right under our feet this whole time. All right, let's go to the example number 1 of what happens when chronically inflamed sick people are finally grounded. In the year 2000, Clint Ober, the discoverer or the rediscoverer of grounding, was asked by a friend if he would ground an elderly gentleman who was bedridden with advanced rheumatoid arthritis. This man's hands, elbows, and feet were grotesquely misshapen and inflamed. He was racked with pain and could hardly move, and then only very slowly. He was receiving comfort and at-home support from hospice, so that's bad. Ober said he would come and see what could be done. It took 3 people to lift the man out of the bed in order to allow a conductive bed pad to be placed on it. The pad was then connected to a ground rod outside. About 10 days later, Ober received a phone call from the man asking if he could come over again. He said that a squirrel had eaten through the ground wire. How do you know that? Ober wanted to know. Well, I went out and saw it had been chewed through, the man said. Ober was puzzled. How could a bedridden patient be up and about in his yard in a matter of a few days? That's what I did, he said. I went outside and saw it. Astonished, Ober drove up again. He found the man waiting for him, leaning against the front door. He said he was feeling better, and he was right about the wire. It had indeed been chewed up by an animal. Ober replaced it. After the elderly patient had used the bed pad for a year, Ober learned from his friend that the man was much improved. He was doing household chores, tending to his fireplace, and even carrying firewood into the house from outside. The swelling had gone down. He was stronger, and he moved, talked, and expressed himself with new liveliness. The friend said that the once bedridden man had told him, "I feel I no longer have disease in my body." Wow. The man continued to sleep grounded every night for the next 5 years until he died. This remarkable turnaround reveals the largely unknown fact that the ground represents the biggest and best natural antioxidant and anti-inflammatory that exists. That's from Earthing, 2nd edition, page 59 to 60, by Clint Ober. There are countless magnificent health recovery stories in the documentaries and the book. That was just one of them, and that was tepid compared to the others. So how does grounding reverse inflammation? This is an excerpt from the Earthing movie. Clint Ober is speaking first, and it trades off to other people. I'll just read it. Stephen Sinatra, who was a cardiologist from back east, was attending a convention, and we sat down with Stephen and told him the story of what I was doing. He said, well, if you're affecting pain, you need to be researching inflammation. You don't have arthritis. You don't have cancer. You don't have all these health disorders. What you have is chronic inflammation. Now, chronic inflammation is different from acute inflammation. Clint Ober speaking, to me at the time, inflammation was you sprain an ankle and it balloons up and gets red and sore and it's inflamed. And he says, no, Inflammation is different than that. Stephen Sinatra speaking now. We have so much inflammation in the body, and it comes out in illnesses. We go to a doctor with all these complaints, but a lot of it is silent inflammation, including my specialty, heart disease. Heart disease is an inflammatory process. So how do we reduce the inflammation? Here's how. Speaking is James L. Oshman, PhD, biophysicist, author, Down to Earth. Here's what he says. The most abundant protein in the body is collagen. It's the building block of our tissues. And we have gazillions of collagen molecules in our bodies. They are all embedded in a gel. This gel has a huge surface area, and it absorbs electrons and releases them when you have an injury. Clint Ober speaking. Inflammation is produced by neutrophils, which is a white blood cell. You have an injury, you have a damaged cell. And so these white blood cells come over and they encapsulate the damaged cell, and they release reactive oxygen species, which rip electrons from the damaged cell, and that destroys the damaged cell. James Oshman speaking. White blood cells release free radicals at the injury site, which chew up any pathogens, bacteria, or dead cells. They clear the area. It's called the repair field. It's the place that needs to be repaired. Without earthing or grounding, some of the free radicals that are released into the repair field leak into the surrounding tissues. Clint Ober speaking now. If there is not enough free electrons there to reduce the remaining radicals, they are going to steal an electron from a healthy cell and in the process damage it. Then the message goes out to the immune system, and another neutrophil does the same thing, eliminates that. So then you end up with a chain reaction. Oshman now speaking. And this can create chronic inflammation, silent inflammation. You may not even know it's there, and it continues for years. Clint Ober speaking. If inflammation is the cause of all these health disorders, then I know that not enough grounding is the cause of inflammation. Because if the body is grounded, you cannot have inflammation. That's from the Earthing movie. I am convinced that God's intervening hand is at work in directing us back to the lost healing principles of Eden, such as this one, the Barefoot Health Principle. I believe these are to be the counteragents to the weapons formed against us, the poisoning of mankind. To live by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God, that no weapon formed against us shall prosper. Notice that walking barefoot on the earth is God's solution for excess free radicals and inflammation. The worldwide craze for antioxidants and anti-inflammatories was a ruse by the enemy of our souls to divert our attention from the primary solutions that God provided from the very beginning. All we had to do was keep ourselves connected to the earth and stick to our original plant-based diet. Nevertheless, I prefer to emphasize the results, the recovery stories, rather than the scientific theories. Mostly because scientific theories tend to change over time, and I don't want my presentations dated. The results, they don't change. TheEarthingInstitute.net. Now, I'm just giving a tiny little introduction to earthing in this presentation. So I will refer you to the voluminous scientific research and the success stories, testimonials, that have been gathered at that website, earthinginstitute.net. And they are fabulous. Clint Ober is the absolute expert on this topic. This is the man of science who rediscovered this lost Eden healing principle and brought it to the world. Yes, the rocks are crying out. The human body is the most complex electrochemical device on planet Earth. It is filled with electrical circuitry, the brain, the nervous system, the muscles, the heartbeats. And electrical devices, well, they need to be grounded, don't they? It's just basic electrical wiring 101. We ground the expensive electrical devices for optimal operation and to prevent problems, just like Adam and Eve did. This science is in harmony with the principles of Eden, the Word of God, and the writings of Ellen White. We have been told those who take the written word as their counselor will find in science an aid to understand God. The invisible things of Him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even His eternal power and Godhead. Romans 1:20. That's from Patriarchs and Prophets, page 116, page 2. Let me just give you one example of God's beautiful electrical balance within nature. The invisible things of God. It's a video clip just over 1 minute long.
Plants are rooted to the ground and have a small negative charge. The higher up the plant you go, the greater the electric charge. This creates an electric field around the flower. We can't see it, but these electrodes are picking up the energy of this tiny field and converting it into the sound that we can hear. Bees, on the other hand, have a positive charge. Friction whilst flying causes them to lose electrons. As a bee approaches a flower, the charged fields around the flower and the bee interact, and the sound changes. There. And when it lands, the positive and negative fields immediately cancel each other out. As this happens, there are two very surprising consequences. Firstly, the plant's negatively charged pollen actually jumps across onto the positively charged bee. Secondly, the plant has a changed electrical field, and when another bee comes along, it detects this altered electrical signature and avoids the flower. The plant is in effect telling the bee that it has no nectar and to come back later.
God surrounded Adam and Eve on every side with nature's automatic healing agencies. Even that big star in the sky 92 million miles away was designed with magnificent healing properties for us. So, is it really any surprise that God would also place magnificent healing agencies right under our very feet without us even having to think about it? Neither my wife nor myself snore anymore since we grounded ourselves at night, at least for chronic inflammation. And sleep is much deeper and thorough. And apparently both these things are quite common with grounding. All right, next testimonial. This is from Randy Haynes. He was on a blog of Med Missionary. I believe that getting my hands and feet in the soil while gardening, as well as lots of sunlight, were the key things that got me over hyperthyroidism about 8 years ago. All right, by the way, here's a question for you. What healthcare occupation has proven to be far and away the most indispensable and effective in preventing and reversing disease? The answer? Organic farmers. All right, here is the next testimonial. Our Creator knows what we need and has placed it in nature for us. Simply earthing regularly is anti-inflammatory, pain-relieving, peace-giving, and nutrition-boosting, plus so much more. My dad, who is 90, now has earthed regularly for several years, and it has helped regulate his arrhythmia and boost his mood. I feel so much better after I do my earthing. I feel less pain and moreover all balance in my whole being. Praise God for giving us what we need, even in the dirt. That was Elizabeth from Medical Missionary. Just a comment in Medical Missionary. That was during a long conversation on grounding. I was a part of that. Grounding is not just the best anti-inflammatory. It is also the best natural blood thinner, without the deadly side effects that come with pharmakea's blood thinners. Wait a minute, though. That can't be right? We are told that water is the best blood thinner. Well, then this is just another example of God's redundant, overlapping backup systems. Water thins the blood by diluting the blood naturally. But grounding does it from a different approach. Yep, that's God's fingerprints. How does grounding thin the blood? All right. Electrons from the earth enter the body and coat the red blood cells so that the cells repel each other. And then they cannot clump. And the blood viscosity goes down. It's easier for the heart to pump the blood. The blood pressure goes down. All kinds of cardiovascular issues, they go away. Now, just because they make these claims here doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Is there evidence for this? Turns out there is. Video evidence of this phenomena. Let's watch that. Listen very carefully because the sound level on this clip is very quiet.
Today we're going to see how the earthing or the grounding affects your blood. We're going to take our blood, put it on the slide, microscopic slide, and take a look. As you can see, all her red blood cells are stacked up. This is called a stacked up cell. And see, let's go see if the earthing can help improve a little. They're actually earthing right now, and they're just starting to ground. So we'll see them back in 10 minutes. Let's see how the earthing or the grounding has affected her blood. Okay. As you can see, the blood, before and after the earthing is obviously changed. So after you do the earthing, the blood can circulate better. This is a good example.
We are fearfully and wonderfully made. When we are not grounded, blood can clump together. When we are grounded, our blood does not clump together. Blood flow is faster and easier. Blood pressure goes down, which relieves strain on the heart. And oxygenation is better and easier and faster. Thus, healing is faster. This video also demonstrated the principle that we get stocked up on electrons when we touch the earth. The electrons are stored in our collagen until needed. You saw in that video that lady simply grounded for 10 minutes, then went back inside and her blood was tested while she was ungrounded. Yet the red blood cells continued to repel each other, even though she was now technically ungrounded. That's because her body restocked itself with electrons. And yes, there is other value in staying connected to the earth, even though you may already be stocked up. That's later. Blood on the left is from 3 participants before grounding, and blood on the right is after 45 minutes of grounding. The picture clearly shows a dramatic thinning and decoupling of blood cells. So, water and grounding, each is a backup system for each other in preventing blood clotting. But God has still more backup systems having to do with decreasing blood clotting or enhancing blood clotting. This chart shows 8 more. Nature has everything we need to deal with the issues of blood clotting. No poisons required. Now, since this chart is put together by the merchants of Pharmakeia, they look at these natural agencies as getting in the way of their poisonous blood thinners, as though nature is just a harmful nuisance. But we know better. Nature is our health care. And it should be no surprise in the next slide that even sunlight prevents blood clots. Here it is. Swedish women who sunbathed during the summer on winter vacations or went abroad or used a tanning bed were at 30% lower risk of venous thromboembolism, blood clots, than those who did not. Risk estimates did not change substantially after adjustment for demographic variables. The risk of blood clots increased by 50% in winter as compared to the other seasons. The lowest risk was found in the summer, when people are out touching the ground without shoes. So, water prevents blood clots. Soil prevents blood clots. Herbs can prevent blood clots. Sunlight prevents blood clots. Exercise does too. And God also made sure that all his healing agencies work together in harmony, synergistically, each one enhancing the other for magnificent health and healing. God always provides better ways than mortal man's medical madness. Millions of Pharmakeia users around the globe are perishing within reach of abundant help. All right, back to the stories. The next one is from the Earthing movie. This is a comment. He says, I fractured a vertebrae in my neck when I was a kid. It did not heal properly, and it became massively arthritic. I have had chronic pain and headaches for 30 years. I got a simple mat to put my feet on. He's talking about a grounding mat. A simple mat to put my feet on when I'm sitting. And I have been using a grounded pillowcase to sleep on. So do I. After about the 3rd night of using the pillowcase, I noticed that my neck appeared to be completely healed. The pain was completely gone, and my range of motion increased easily by at least 20%, and with zero pain. For me, this was nothing short of miraculous. I am completely addicted to earthing. Nicholas Capra comments on the Earthing movie. Clearly, our God is an awesome God. If we would just trust him when he tells us that our healing is found in nature, not in drugs. Never in drugs. Clint Ober discovered that as long as we are physically grounded to the earth, we are protected from the dangerous, relentless bombardment of electromagnetic fields, at least the low-level EMF coming from our home appliances. Now, I had just finished this section here on Eden's Barefoot Health Principle in this presentation when I received an email, and here's what it said. It was addressed to me. I watched your video on tuberculosis and healing with sunlight. I heard you talk about sun healing bones. I have osteoporosis in the back and hip, and osteoarthritis in my knees, which I'm supposed to have replaced soon. I've been praying for God to show me another way. But what can you do if you're in a cold area in winter? I've told myself I would get outside this winter, but it's been way too cold. So I told her about the classic exercise and proper diet thing to prevent and reverse these things. But I did not find that very satisfying. So I looked to see if Clint Ober might have something to say about grounding in osteoporosis and inflammation, osteoarthritis. I found a page on his website, earthinginstitute.net, on osteoporosis, which I included in my answer to her. There were 4 healing stories. I'll just retell 2 of them here. From a woman, 56, in England in 2015. She says, I broke my back a few years ago and was, at the time, diagnosed with osteoporosis. I refused biphosphates and calcium and was too lazy to take up weightlifting. However, I had my bones scanned again recently, and the results showed a remarkable improvement. I no longer have osteoporosis. I have been grounding for about a year. Effortless, automatic, easy, simple, free. Next story. 65-year-old person, retired nurse, Indio, California, 2020. When I first began grounding, I did not have the immediate results that I have read about others having. In fact, I felt worse. I had more fatigue and pain. I have an autoimmune condition, ankylosing spondylitis, chronic pain, as well as migraines. You encouraged me to hang in there, that it would get better. I continued grounding at night, and during the day, when I laid down, I have been grounding almost 3 months. The changes have been very gradual. When I started, I was walking 20 minutes a day and struggling to do that due to overwhelming fatigue and pain. I have osteoporosis, and my doctor has been pushing me to go on medication for it. I have resisted because of all the side effects associated with these drugs. I have been taking supplements to strengthen my bones, though my doctor said that it won't make much difference. I was on supplements before my bone scan 2 years ago, and my results showed my bones density was worse. I had read that grounding may help with osteoporosis, so that was my motivation. I kept putting off my bone scan to allow more time to ground. Then my doctor refused to treat me any longer if I didn't get my repeat scan and go on meds. So I had my scan. I was shocked to learn that I no longer have osteoporosis. Needless to say, I am a firm believer in the benefits of grounding after only 3 months. Can't wait to see how much better I get as time goes on. When I combined these stories with all the other historical healing stories of nature in all my presentations, I realized something very important about God's Eden healthcare system. God has built into nature redundant, overlapping, backup health systems. Sunlight prevents and reverses osteoporosis. Exercise prevents and reverses osteoporosis. Eden's diet prevents and reverses osteoporosis. Grounding prevents and reverses osteoporosis. Just imagine the speed of healing were we to combine all these 4 healing agents into a purposeful, consistent effort for ourselves and our patients. What would that literally look like? It would literally look like gardening. Back to Adam and Eve. Just like the stories in this presentation, just like Adam and Eve were assigned to do. If we are determined to help our patients overcome disease, then we must get them into a garden barefoot and tanned. That's another presentation. It's now making more sense how hardened, violent prisoners were turned into sane, functioning members of society simply by useful labor in a garden, in the soil, fresh air, and sunlight. And how it was that her chronic, relentless cough was almost immediately eliminated after getting outside with her hands in the soil. Anti-inflammation. And now we understand why God instructed Loma Linda that by working in the soil, their patients would regain their health. Well, that's all paved over now out there. God never said that their patients would regain their health by drug use. Just the opposite. And now we know why dyspeptics and consumptives could overcome disease by becoming farmers. This is a paradigm shift in healthcare, even for natural healthcare providers. Working with the soil comes with the healing blessings of God, literally. With rapid healing, with nature working together in harmony to heal us and our patients. No pharmakeia, no defilement, no adverse side effects, but rather an actual cure for disease. Just touching the earth is the greatest anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, anti-EMF, anti-blood clotting on earth, literally on earth. It cannot get any easier than that. You just show up. Just standing there outside, barefoot on planet Earth, your health is improving. Talk about simple, easy, and automatic. God's health care is embedded into nature, into gardening especially. When we separate ourselves from nature, we separate ourselves from our health care. By outdoor exercise and working in the soil, men and women will regain their health. Pretty amazing, isn't it? Well, folks, I want to thank you for watching this video and sticking with me here. Please share this video. God is good.